Howdy, I'm just making a quick response video based off my last one. Got a couple comments. One of the comments basically was saying that they are a preconception antinatalist, meaning that, like, they are in favor of abortion in some cases, or, like, neutral on abortion in some cases, but only in the case of when their nervous system essentially is not developed, which would be before 20 weeks. Basically, like, they are the standard case of, like, Roe v. Wade, basically, where Roe v. Wade essentially was saying that, like, states can make their own decisions, but it would be based off of once nervous system's developed. And 90% of abortions happen before the first 20 weeks, so, I mean, in my opinion, it's not a bad stance to hold. I mean, only 10% of abortions would take place past the point of the nervous system being developed. But some of my questions that I do have regarding that would be, I mean, you said, once the nervous system's developed, it would be basically the equivalent of murder, but there'd be nuances between, like, laws and stuff like that, moving, like, medical emergencies and, like, exceptions of, like, I don't know, probably, like, rape and stuff of that nature, where, like, they didn't realize it was, they were pregnant or whatever, and then, all that type of jazz. So, but I'd have to ask, like, well, if it's murder to kill a fetus, basically, that has just because it can essentially feel pain or discomfort, I guess, at that point, they don't have an identity, so there's nothing, like, to, like, process really that, like, pain, like, a meaningful way. Would you say it's murder to, like, I don't know, kill a mouse in, like, a mouse trap or something of that equivalent? Like, I mean, you're killing a being, and it can feel more pain probably than, like, the fetus can. I mean, is it technically murder, or, like, I mean, like, murder sounds like a serious crime, so, like, there doesn't seem to be, like, nuances around, like, killing mice, but just like a quick little, like, thought regarding, like animals and versus human beings that, don't really have necessarily anything more special than animals that we generally have considered pest animals, in my opinion. Not that animals should be considered pest animals. I mean, they're only subjectively considered pests because we have these silly little dwellings that, we live in. Um, I'm glad you oppose, like, fanatical anti-abortion stuff. I mean, I'm curious, though, when it comes to Roe v. Wade, if you were, like, opposed to Roe v. Wade being overturned. I mean, in my opinion, you probably, I mean, just based off the context of what I know, you would be opposed to Roe v. Wade being overturned because it's aligned rather closely with your positions, and you were in favor of women having choices. Um, yeah, a question also about that. If you're in favor of women having choices, which I am, I'm in favor of all people being able to make whatever choices they want, so long as it doesn't hurt another being. That's when it starts to enter a gray territory of, like, well, if you're hurting another being, is it preventing a more serious pain from yourself or another being while you're hurting that being? And that's where it starts to enter into utility type of things. Besides that, I believe basically anybody can do whatever the hell they want. It doesn't matter, so long as it's not hurting someone else. But when it comes to having a child, I mean, to me it seems that, like, well, they're guaranteeing harms to another being. So, and given that most people probably aren't having children to, prevent future animal suffering by, like, having their child be, like, a vegan and antinatalist activist or something, I don't know, man, it seems to me that, like, more likely than not, having a child is going to net harm, so it's probably highly wrong to have a child, for the most part. And to me, I mean, that's basically indicating that's where their choice ends, is the fact that they're causing a net harm, most likely. Like, I'd like 99.99999% of all cases nowadays, it's probably going to be a net harm to have a child. Like, you're pretty damn lucky to have them will be raised in a way that they're not going to be a blight to some extent or another. I guess a final point, a closing point, would just be if the whole concern is the fact that the nervous system is developing, that they can feel pain now, it's less the fact that they're a living organism, nor that they don't have an identity, because they don't have like any semblance of an identity. I'm an identity nihilist, so I believe that like it's constantly dying, being reborn through experience. But when it comes down to it, like these like babies, fetuses, they don't even have the illusion of identity. They don't have any semblance of continuity like whatsoever in terms of their existence. So it's like to me, I mean, it's not they're alive because they're willing to have abortions be done before the nervous system's developed, and it's not necessarily that either. So to me, it just seems it has to be like the fact that they're feeling pain. But then I have to kind of ask, like, I mean, is it completely unacceptable to cause pain in all forms all the time? Because then, like, basically we're gonna be like in a standstill in life because, like, we're constantly causing pain to things in order to like continue existence. But if it is just the fact that like, well, no, like you cause a lot of pain to exist, but there's good things or whatever in existing. You can relieve suffering from continuing existing and all that, blah blah blah. So basically, we're entering into utility of pain. If it is entering into utility of pain, though, it seems to me that you'd be much better off aborting a fetus for the fetus's sake than to let it become like born and brought into life, because it's going to experience far, far more pain than it will during the experience of an abortion, especially considering beings can go into shock, so it's not like it'll probably like live like through the whole abortion procedure. I mean, it's tiny. I don't think a knife is probably like half the width of its arm. It's not gonna last long. But so yeah, in my opinion, it's just like, yeah, I mean, you're preventing far more pain from that being to not have become an existing being with an identity and consciousness and all that jazz. Like, sure, there's benefits that having a moral agent on the planet could be a good thing, depending on like how it grows up. But I feel like that's a really, 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 really big risk to take. And in terms of the agents, the agent doesn't want to come here. Like no one, no sentient being who is fully aware and educated would want to be here. For their own sake, I'm saying, basically. If, like, some beings such as myself would be like, yeah, I mean, I would want to be here solely to end the net suffering of other beings, like, that's the duty of any being, is to end the net suffering of other beings. So, knowing that, I'd be like, well, it's my duty. If I had the option to, like, come back here, I'd come back here, but, like, no. No one's coming back here by their own volition or knowledge, so it's just like, I don't know, man. To me, it seems like it would be always in the being's favor to stop existing, even if they can feel pain, like, because they're gonna be feeling a lot more pain once they come into existence. Like, sure, they might not consent if they had the ability to consent or not consent. They might not consent to being aborted. I mean, it's a really scary concept, death and like experiencing pain, especially when you've never experienced pain before. If I was a fetus, I wouldn't want to be like going underneath a knife. But you have to know that, like, guess what? It's not a fully informed being, and it's not aware of like premortalism and all that type of stuff. Like, it's not aware of the horrors of life to like the extent that like existing beings sometimes are. So it's ill-informed. Like, we are moral agents, and we have to make the decision for the being whether we're going to bring it into existence or to abort it and prevent its suffering. And I feel like the best choice is to prevent its suffering. Well, yep, that's all.